right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Jess, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Yes, we definitely have a lot to talk about, and we're taking your phone calls tonight to talk about those things, especially guys like Russell Wilson and maybe Deshaun Elliott, a new guy they're bringing in, and who they're going to pick up for wide receiver. 412-575-2600 is the number. Chris Mueller on the other side over to 93.7 The Fan Cam. Russell Wilson is here, Chris. He's in town. He got his hair cut at a barber somewhere, and he'll be introduced tomorrow at Steelers headquarters on the south side. You know, I'm going to say this. I know we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. If the Steelers did, they signed him. I think, for me, there's no question he's coming here to be the starter. I don't think he would have signed here unless he was somewhat guaranteed that he was going to be the starting quarterback this year. I get it if he's completely stinks and Kenny Pickett's better, but I think he's QB number one right now.
Russell Wilson will be the Steelers' Week 1 starter unless he blows out a knee or a hamstring before then. He's not going to lose the starting job in training camp based on his performance or lack thereof. They're going to give him a significant amount of time, I would think, Richie, to win the job and then, prove that he was the right choice to win the job, I should say. And then if he really is bad during the regular season and they have a bad record, they might go to Kenny Pickett. But Russell Wilson's the starting quarterback. Yeah,
I think it would be a complete disaster, Chris, if Russell Wilson is. I don't know what he'd be like in that locker room, and then after 2 series or 2 incompletions, the fans will be booing Kenny Pickett. I don't see in any scenario Kenny Pickett is day one starting quarterback.
Neither do the Steelers. That's why Russell Wilson's here. The mere fact that they traded for Russell, or that they signed, not traded for, but signed Russell Wilson for such a cheap price, that's why they did it, indicates that they don't have faith in Kenny Pickett. I mean, everything about this is, one way or another, a referendum on the starting quarterback. Mike Tomlin was asked at his season-ending press conference whether he thought next year's starter at quarterback was already on the roster, and he paused, and then he said, yes. Well, obviously that was a lie. Clearly they might have felt like Matt Canada was a big problem, but it seems that they felt Kenny Pickett also bore significant amounts of blame for what happened to their offense last year. So for me, this is a pretty cut-and-dried issue. Russell Wilson was signed to be the starting quarterback, and that's exactly what he'll be.
But Russell Wilson needs receivers, Chris, and they have one right now, essentially.
Well, they should have traded for Keenan Allen because he's going to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. I believe it's either pick 122 or 118, 119. The Steelers have back-to-back picks, 120 and 121. Keenan Allen is as crisp a route runner and as productive a receiver when healthy, really, as there is in the NFL. You can go look at the guy's stats. He's just a catch machine. He's a quarterback's best friend type. He's absolutely the kind of player they should have targeted, since a lot of their other moves seem to be telegraphing a win-now attitude. We need to make this team good enough to win a playoff game, maybe 2, and see what happens. I would have traded Keenan Allen for Keenan Allen from the Chargers, because if the Bears got him for what they got him for, and I haven't seen any reports to the contrary that it was a 4th-round pick, the Steelers had 2 of them, and they should have used one.
What about if you can sign someone like Tyler Boyd or Mike Williams? And is he almost an equivalent of Keenan Allen? And you're not giving up much to get him?
Keenan Allen's better than either one of those guys. Mike Williams, back, among other things, is chronically injured. If Tyler Boyd ends up here, I'll be happy. I think Tyler Boyd's a good player. I think Tyler Boyd, probably after being in the shadow of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase for a couple of years, probably wants to be an outside receiver, a number 2. We remember that with Juju Smith-Schuster wanting to be the outside guy. I do think Boyd physically is built more for it. He's got that more traditional number 2 wide receiver frame. So if they wanted to do that, I wouldn't be unhappy about it. But they absolutely need receivers, even though in the Arthur Smith offense, it seems like there's usually only enough footballs to go around for one top wide receiver target.
One question I had, I know the Steelers have done this one before, but, I know a lot of fans want Tyler Boyd here because he's a Pitt guy, Clareton guy. But do you think there's some reservation with the Steelers or some concern about maybe potentially bringing a hometown person into start? Or do you think that's not something that they're even considering?
There shouldn't be. Do you think if Aaron Donald suddenly became available, there would be reservations about it? No, because Aaron Donald is a proven all-time great. Tyler Boyd is a much better than average wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver. If there's trepidation about a hometown player being here because of the scrutiny, it's going to be because the player's not good enough. James Conner had an up-and-down career here, but part of it was being injured, part of it was sitting behind Lev Bell. When Bell sat out and Conner was the man, Conner was pretty darn good until he got banged up. So I don't think there should be any trepidation about that.
All right, the phone lines are jammed. We're going to take your phone calls coming up in about 2 minutes. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Code. This is our tweet of the night. Hell to Pitt. Chris, they've won 10 of their last 12. That's it. One of the hottest teams in college basketball. Chris, do you think they make the NCAA tournament? Are they in the play-in game? I think they should be in. They were the 4th team in the ACC. I think the ACC should at least have 5 or 6 teams in. It is the ACC. I understand it might be a down year, but I like Pitt's chances. I know it's a tall task because a lot of people were saying projecting you needed to win 2, and you're up against the 4th-ranked team in the country right now.
Richie, I want to say first for the record, I'm very glad for your sake that you led this segment with a Pitt mention in the tweet of the night and some college basketball talk, because I was about to hijack things when we were going over Russell Wilson. Pitt, here, you want to talk about something? You know, there's some brewing or some bubbling tension between Pitt and Duquesne because apparently, you know, depending on who you talk to, Pitt doesn't seem to want to play the rivalry game, the city game. Well, Duquesne just amped things up a little bit because they just beat Dayton, and that means the A-10 is going to be a 2-bid league because Dayton is solidly, firmly in the tournament, even as an at-large. Now Duquesne's 2 wins away from being in there, which would be an incredible story. And in putting Dayton in as an at-large team, they automatically take a bid from a team like Pitt that's sitting right around that bubble area. Virginia is in some trouble against Boston College. It's not going to drop that Virginia win if they lose tonight to a quad 2 for Pitt. But that'll be interesting to watch. If Pitt beats North Carolina, I think they are a lock to be in. And if they beat North Carolina, they might well have an easy opponent on paper for the ACC championship game and an auto bid. But I think they're obviously tournament worthy. I thought other than a pretty good run and a game run by Wake Forest, Pitt was fully in control of that game and dominating for long stretches. So they should be in my opinion. But the problem is all the people who do these brackets professionally seem to think that they need to win one more game, and as you stated, it is a tall order, and Duquesne did not make their lives any easier about 15 minutes ago.
Do you see a scenario where Pitt wins this game tomorrow?
Yeah, I actually do. I mean, I think that they absolutely can win. I think we know a couple things about Pitt. If they shoot well, they're going to be very difficult for anybody to beat, including the 4th-ranked team in the country. They are a hot shooting team. They're a streaky shooting team. They are the number 1 team in the ACC in 3-pointers made. North Carolina's a little bit further back. I think that when these 2 teams played and Carolina won 70-57, that was a different Pitt squad than the one that we're seeing now. Leggett hadn't gone to become a 6th man yet. I think the big story for Pitt is, do you get team rebounding the same way that you did against Wake Forest pretty much all game? Does Federico especially stay out of foul trouble? Baycott would have a field day with Diaz-Graham down there. And then this is the other part. Can Pitt dance this line? Can they control tempo against a very athletic team that's happy to get out and run while also not straying from what their DNA is, which is to also run and gun and shoot threes? So I think there's a path there, but they're a pretty clear underdog for a reason.
Yeah, Hinson's got to be hot for them to have a chance, I think, in this one. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got David out in Finleyville. How you doing, David?
Hi, Rich. Thanks for taking my call. I want to ask you and Chris, what do you think if there's any new wrinkles when Wilson starts that Arthur Smith will put into the Steelers' playbook? I'll hang up and listen to you. Thanks.
I think the offense is going to be a little more productive. That's the biggest wrinkle with someone like Russell Wilson. I mean, look, he had not a great year the first year in Denver, but a little bit better year this year. I think he still has it. I still think he can be productive, and hopefully this offense is a little more of an NFL offense where they could, score some points. So I don't know what he's going to be better at. He's going to be better at everything than Kenny Pickett.
I don't know if he's going to be better at everything. Some of their weaknesses are the exact same. He's still a more, I think, effective runner or scrambler just because I do think there's a sense from having been in the league so long of when to go. He leaves the pocket too early, though, on other situations. That's what pretty much everyone, including the film, will tell you about Russell Wilson. This is not a wrinkle. It's just something factual that I'll tell you should look different. Arthur Smith wants to really pound the run. The Steelers are gearing up to try to be a pound-the-run team. he does throw still one of the best deep balls. Even his detractors admit this. He throws one of the best deep balls in the NFL. They should be able to hit more go shots down the field with him because of the combination of running game, setting up play action, and him just being a lot better at it and having a much better deep arm than does Kenny Pickett.
You know, do you read anything into, I talked to Omar Khan last week, and, you know, I asked him about picking up Najee Harris's fifth-year option. And look, he's not going to tell me that he's going to do it, but he was kind of hesitant, saying, hey, we're going to evaluate this. We're going to let Arthur Smith chime in. But he wasn't coming out like, hey, Najee is our guy. And I still think the Steelers might not do it. Do you have any feeling on that?
If Andy Weidl and Omar Khan combine, you know, I always look at Weidl as more the personnel guy, but if Khan's influence is as strong as it might, seem to be in some of these situations where he's an analytical guy and he doesn't see as much value in running back, although given what they paid Queen, while it was still a bargain, goes a little bit against tendency for inside backer and what the analytics crowd and the positional value crowd will tell you. If Khan has his way, I don't think they would extend Najee Harris that fifth-year option and pick that up because I don't think he sees running back as a position that's worth it, even at like the purported number, Richie, of $6.7 million, I think it is. One thing that I think is interesting, you say he was hemming and hawing a little bit. I believe it was Jerry Dulac and Mark Caballi both who sort of asked jokingly, they were laughing as the question was being asked about a quarterback, whatever.
Yeah.
They were talking about that with Khan. He gave a very serious answer to them, like he wasn't in on the joke about looking for another quarterback, and wouldn't you know it, they go out and sign Russell Wilson. So contextually, Richie, the way he answered your question makes me think that there's a very real possibility that they wouldn't pick up that fifth-year option.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't come out and say yeah or no, but he just said we're going to evaluate. You would think if it's your guy, you're going to come out and say, hey, Najee's our guy. We'll see what happens, but it's looking like we're trending in that direction. I don't know why you'd have to hide that situation. All right, let's go out to Brad and DuBois. How you doing, Brad?
Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm
good.
I'm wondering how you guys think about the Sean Elliott acquisition. I think he's going to make an excellent plus for their.
I hope so. My one concern, Chris, is he missed all of 2018, most of 2019, only started 6 games in 2021. It seems like injuries have kind of plagued his career right now.
He's got an injury history for sure, but I think what's good about him is he's a pretty straightforward, no-frills player at a no-frills price. He's a guy who's going to replace KZ back there. He's going to be a guy who's playing down in the box a lot and allow Minka to do what he's supposed to do. And if you read anything about him or if you've watched him enough to see this, you know he's pretty straightforward on the field. He's a good tackler. He's good in run defense. He's not really a great coverage guy, but he's a pretty consistent player, and I do think what they need back there is consistency. But, yeah, health should be a concern, but if the player stays healthy, I think they got a good running buddy for Minka Fitzpatrick because role definition in that secondary is important.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit better version of Terrell Edmunds.
I think that's a fair way to put it. I mean, that's where I was skating towards, but honestly, I didn't want to because saying he's a better version of Terrell Edmunds still leaves people with visions of, well, Terrell Edmunds, which is why you don't want to stray towards that very much. But he is what he is. He's a guy who's good against the run, good in run support, and just a pretty sure tackler. All of those are things that are good because Minka way too often had to come up and be the last line of defense and make too many tackles last year. They need him, and they're paying him to be a ball hawk at free safety.
And I do think we'd all have a different opinion of Terrell Edmunds if he was a third-round pick instead of a first-round pick.
You mean where they should have taken him, Richie? I
exactly.
agree.
Let's go out to Manny in Pittsburgh. How you doing, Manny?
Hey, guys. I was just wondering, do you see the Steelers trading up for a left tackle or an offensive lineman or staying back and maybe grabbing another receiver?
Manny, they're definitely not trading for a left tackle, brother, because here's what's going to happen. Broderick Jones, the guy they actually did trade up for, is going to go play left tackle next year like he was supposed to. They just needed to get him in the lineup and apparently decided to favor Dan Moore with that move, which is strange, but that's neither here nor there. I think they're going to stay put at 20, Richie, and I think they're going to have a pick of either Jackson Powers Johnson, Amarius Mims, or some other tackle, or maybe a cornerback, although I feel like cornerback maybe slid down the list a little bit for them.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be cornerback, but You know, one thing that I heard is that they're going to keep Broderick Jones at right tackle and they're going to keep Dan Moore at left tackle for the time being because Dan Moore is uncomfortable on the right side. I know.
I would hate that. Omar Khan said we drafted Broderick to play left tackle, so that I mean,
but didn't
I take
say
that
when,
to mean,
and it could be in 25.
What are you going to do?
24.
Draft him to play at 3? That's ridiculous, honestly. If the Steelers do that, if what you're hearing is true, then I think that's roster malpractice. Dan Moore is a below-average player, and that's me being charitable. Put the guy you traded up and drafted to play left tackle at left tackle, for crying out loud. That's ridiculous.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to go cornerback. I know this is early, and I want to see what they do in these pro days. They were at Clemson today. Tomlin was seen with Trotter and Wiggins out there. Those could be one of their 2 picks in the first or second round. I like Wiggins.
I don't know if he fits what they want to do. I mean, Mitchell from Toledo, I think, is the kind of physical player who's not shy about the run and defending it and is tested great, who I think they'd love. Wiggins is an athletic freak too, but he has no real history of being a good tackler. And I know people roll their eyes at that, but the Steelers prioritize that. Joey Porter Jr. had to learn that the hard way, apparently from his dad, kind of getting in his kitchen about that. So if Wiggins is out there, they might be too tempted with the physical profile to pass him up. But I know they want guys who are more physical when they actually play on the field than he showed himself to be.
And maybe Kool-Aid might be an option as well if he's there. I don't know if he will be. All right, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls coming up next. Stay right there.